everyone, it's Misty here. Welcome to another episode of Fannie Friday. In today's video, I'm going to be working with Karl, who is our plumber from the April release, and I'm actually going to be combining him with the digital stamp delivery day. So I had the idea to create Handy Manny. Do you guys remember that cartoon from years ago? I'll have to pop up a picture. My niece, when she was young, I knew all of the Nickelodeon shows, not gonna lie. So I knew I wanted to model this character after him. So I have to apologize for the lighting. As you can see, I added a black mat. Normally, I used to have one and it was purple, then I had black, and then I've had teal. And this is not my favorite, but it was the one that could get to me quickest. So I'm gonna have to adjust my lighting on my end. I've tried to fix it in iMovie and it just looks weird and distorted. So I apologize that it's really, really bright and the exposure feels really bright. And like I said, I will try to fix that for next week. So I will have all of the markers that I use to color him in the description box down below. Handy Manny is an Hispanic character, but his coloring on the cartoon, he was pretty light. And I am going to be adding a hat to this character. So the only hair I really needed to cover, as you can see here, were going to be the sides of his head. So I'm also have had to piecemeal this coloring together a little bit because I actually made a card first and I just didn't like it, and I will pop up a picture of that. And then I was like, okay, this is not what I wanted. So I started again as I normally do, and I colored him a second time, but didn't film it because I'd already colored him the first. And there's the peak of the first card. And like I said, I will pop up a picture. While it wasn't a bad card, it just wasn't what I had in mind. And as I've mentioned before, I don't normally do a, what's it called? A sample. I'm not someone who sits down, makes a card, and like, okay, I'll recreate this. When I sit down to create, it's because I have an idea in my head and I want to get it out. And then unfortunately, this time it just didn't work out like I wanted, and I went back to the drawing board. So, Manny wears a orange hat. Of course, his doesn't have the emblem in the middle, but I went ahead and colored it, and that's going to be his hat. I did cut this out with my scissors, so I'm just going around it with my, just a black brush pen just to take away the white. Now, I went ahead and printed the PDF version of the file. So when you buy the digital files from Anne at Stamp Anything, you get a PNG, a JPEG, and you get a PDF. On the PDF, you get two images. One's on the top left, one's on the bottom right. And I went ahead and printed them like that because I knew that I needed to size it correctly. And I didn't want to skew the images in like Photoshop or something like that and accidentally resize it and it'd be too big. So I took care of all of that and just clicked the PDF and printed it. So I am coloring the wrench. So the wrench on Handy Manny is orange. In this version, I went ahead and colored the what would be metal orange because in the cartoon, everything about him is orange. But I didn't like the way that looked. So when I recolored him, I colored it again. And here you can see I've colored the hair. I've colored like the shadow where the hat will be. And I love how the hair turned out, by the way. I'm going to have to use that. that color combo again. But so yeah, so I ended up actually coloring the lunchbox red at the end. And again, you can find those linked down below. So for its overalls, I did want it to look a little bit like jeans. And if you're new to me or new to my coloring, I color darkest to lightest. And I just go by my hex chart. That's really my saving grace when it comes to coloring. A lot of times you'll see me have a piece of paper off to the side where I'm testing my blends just to see if I like it and if I need to add, a fourth marker rather than just doing 3. So that is the best way for me to color. So here he is, the second version. And I decided to make it look like he was at a hardware store. So I believe in the cartoon, he does own a hardware store. So originally this was going to be a box of toilet paper. But I was like, I don't feel like writing on the box. Number one, my handwriting is atrocious. But number two is I would probably misspell it and hate my life. So I skipped that. But I went ahead and colored these boxes in a khaki colorway. I used E44, 43, and 42. I really do love how these boxes turned out. I think they're a perfect kind of crafty, darker color. Very similar to the Amazon boxes that show up at my door probably every single day. Is anybody else like that? Amazon is just so quick and simple. I can just, Rob's like, oh, and I'm like, I can just get on Amazon. I'll just get it on. He's like, okay. It's like we pay for Prime. We might as well use it, right? So for the boxes, I did the same way. I kind of put some darkness where the corners are, like where the seams meet, and I just finished coloring it in. When I was coloring this, I was actually listening to the Cup of Justice podcast. I don't know if you guys have been following it, but I have been following the Murdaugh Murders podcast and those murders on the trial and stuff. If you're unfamiliar, there was a lawyer in South Carolina, came from a huge prominent family of district attorneys for 100 years, and he was recently convicted of killing his wife and his son, stole millions of dollars from clients, had a drug addiction. I mean, it is like, I bet that if they do a miniseries, that miniseries is going to be like 15 parts. So yeah, if you're interested, be sure to look it up. But I'm normally not a true crime person, but I got sucked in. So I am using the wood grain paper from the Farm Life paper pad, and I am using the coffee bar dies from the release a couple of months ago. I believe it was November's release, to cut out kind of the counter where the register would be, and then like a place on the back where they would hang up. So I kind of went by the colors of the characters. There is a yellow screwdriver, a purple screwdriver. There's a green wrench. So I just kind of went that way. I wanted something hanging up in the background. So I've cut small pieces of paper and I am going to adhere them to a piece of adhesive sheet. So these are double-sided adhesive sheets. If you are cutting something tiny or something intricate, I highly recommend the ones that I have from Amazon are super sticky. So once something goes down, it's down. You can't move it. You can't move it. So just be mindful of that. I'm going to do the same thing so I can cut out Great Job. And again, it just makes it easier and I don't have to fiddle with glue. Even though the glue from Stamp Anything is clear, it would get over everything, everywhere. I mean, seriously. Okay, so for the background, I am going to bring in a piece of craft paper, but I am going to go ahead and use a different color. Here I'm looking for a piece of paper to go as the backdrop, and then that's when I decided that I was going to do something completely different. So, yeah, again, I just go through and see what I want to do, and I picked a piece of craft. So this was a bad decision on my part. But I'm going to share with you what I did. So I brought in a stylus tool, and this bone folder would work as well. So every 1/4 inch, I made a score mark on the piece of paper. And what I'm essentially doing is making a piece of paper that's going to look like beadboard. And I wanted that on the back. So for the back of it. The issue is I wasn't thinking that not only is the kind of countertop this brown color, but the boxes are basically this exact color. So I'm going to do this, but then I'm going to bring in a separate piece of paper, like a lighter blue, and do that instead. So that is an easy way to add some texture to your background. If you don't have like an embossing folder or something like that, as long as you have a score tool, like a stylus or a bone folder, and just use your trimmer, well, no problem. And again, I apologize for the color and the lighting. I will try to make sure I have that fixed before I see you guys next week. So I went ahead and adhered these flat with just some tape runner, and I'm trying to make sure I get them straight. You guys know, if you're familiar with me, I'm just about crooked with everything. And here you can see that definitely shows up better than he did on the khaki paper. So yeah, and this is when I decided that I want to go ahead and do the background for the great job. And I am again using that Farm Life paper, kind of the blue jean print. And then I'm using just a pokey tool to get them out. And see, with the double-sided adhesive, I don't have to worry about that. You're basically making stickers. And again, you can just search double-sided adhesive sheets on Amazon. Lots of companies make them. So I am just going to get great job adhered, and then we're going to get this adhered flat to the front of the counter. And again, for me, in my head, this is inside a hardware store, and this is where your register would be. But there's not a register die that I know of. I don't know. I don't have one. And if I do, I have no idea what it looks like. So, yeah. And you can see here, I'm just peeling off the backer sheet and getting it down. And again, if I had used liquid glue on this, I would have hated my life because I would have been taking glue off everything. So I'm hanging them, each of them a little differently just to give some visual interest. And I am making sure that Manny isn't going to cover it up. I did move over the sentiment just a little bit. I added some foam tape to the back of Manny and got him adhered. Okay, so I've zoomed you in real close because I'm going to share with you how I made the eyeballs. So this is puff paint from Tulip Puff Paint, and I am using some white and the stylus, the smaller end, to add this to each of the tools, and this is going to be the white of their eyes. You can see that I'd already done it to the wrench, and now I'm going to bring in black puff paint, and I'm going to dot in the little eyes. And it's kind of hard to see, but when you see the card in person, you can see it for sure. And once I do that, that's it. Handy Manny, do 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 do. Handy Manny, do 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 do. Handy Manny. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate you. And again, I will have all of the supplies, etc., linked in the description box down below. Don't forget, if you want any or part of the new release, you can sign up for Stamp Club. All of the information is linked down below. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.